Hello and welcome to the Failures to Success. My name is Vuyo Joboda, and on this podcast, weekly we will be discussing the true cost of success, looking at the realities behind success. What are the physical, psychological, spiritual, financial, and mental health effects and costs to being successful? In essence, we wish to share the failures to success to help equip, empower, and inspire you for your journey to success. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Failures to Success podcast by myself, your darling Vuyo Joboda, and I'm super excited to be back with you today for another installment of this season. And in the previous episode, we spoke about so many different things that pertained to failure, and last episode I got to share story time, and I hope that you guys enjoyed that part of me just slightly opening up a little bit about some of the stories I've encountered. And today's episode is centered around what failure feels like. So I previously explained what failure is in contrast to success. And last episode, I gave story of an experience where I had failed. But this episode is just basically sharing what failure feels like, because sometimes we don't even know or are able to place these feelings somewhere, or understanding that I am feeling this feeling. So this episode gets to delve into that and gives us really a background of understanding that you are feeling it, right? And because it comes with emotions. So when it does come, we're acknowledging the feelings that are associated with it. So it feels like something. And I'm going to be sharing some of the feelings I've experienced from failure and how those impacted me. And now being on my journey to healing from those, I am hoping that it will encourage you as well. Now, when we come to think about failure and the understanding of the impacts of, or the understanding of the impact it has on you, is that it evokes so many emotions. When you're doing something and it is seemingly going well, you're feeling quite good about it, but then the failure or the element of failure kicks in and it evokes certain types of emotions. And the one emotion that I've personally felt the most from failure, that, it feels that is the biggest hard knock-on effect for me, has been shame and embarrassment, but more or less, more than anything, shame. And the shame of the fact that you had gone on this journey and you had began this particular project, thing, experience, whatever it is, right? And when you fail, you feel shame. It's in anything. You feel like you're ashamed of yourself, ashamed of the fact that how will this impact firstly yourself, because you might have been working so hard at whatever it is, and then what will others think about you, or how will it affect others around you? So shame being the first emotion that I feel when I am experiencing failure. I feel ashamed, like I should just, and I do this thing where I would just hide myself and sit in my room and just wallow in distress, because I'm ashamed of what had just happened, my inability to make this thing work. I'm embarrassed about the fact that this didn't work. It's that emotion is the first one that I get to feel. Feelings and emotions of shame and embarrassment. And the next feeling that I get to have is resentment. And this is the second feeling that I think, it comes into effect, and it does one of two things. And I'm going to dive deeper within those two things a little bit later on, but it breeds an element of you become hyper determined or super determined, or you give up. I've only had those two. I don't know, you might have had a different experience, but for me, it's only been those two experiences where I either feel super determined to keep going at this because the embarrassment and the shame is determination to keep going, or I just give it up and I'm like, this is a sign that I should just stop, and I give up. The next feeling or emotion is an emotion of anger, mad at myself for not doing it okay, mad at myself for not trying hard enough, mad at myself for not doing the best that I know I could have or should have, or mad at myself for maybe missing a step within the steps that I had predetermined to do. So feeling anger, I was just like, oh, I am so mad. That feeling for sure comes in. And anger towards other people, right? Anger towards others who you either feel, they might have not even done anything, but you feel anger towards the resentment, the shame that you feel like they will put upon you, right? You feel like these people are going to laugh at you or embarrass you even further. So you feel anger towards them. Either they do that or they don't, or you keep it inside of you internally. But you do feel that anger for others. And sometimes, people, talk down at the failure or remind you of the failure, and you kind of just like, you're angry at them for this consistent reminder that you guys are consistently telling me about a failure that I am critically aware of. Like, I know, I'm very aware of it. And I always say this to in conversations with other people, and I'm like, trust you me, that person knows, they know that they've failed. So by kind of tapping onto that, I was having this conversation as well with friends, and I was in a position where, I was owing someone money, right? And because of heavy financial burdens that I had inflicted upon myself, but also just for the work that I'm doing, because each and every debt or financial burden that I've experienced has been because of the work that I do. It's never been for myself, or it's always been for my work. So I would always find myself resenting myself for putting myself in that position, but also I was having this conversation saying to someone that, like, those people that are always kind of hounding someone for their return, which those people have every right to do that. It's their money. Why not? You should remind someone, right? But I was saying this to this person that I was like, on the other side, I've also lend someone money, and so I understand that desire to want it back, right? Specifically if there was a time period to it, and I said this, and I was like, I think everyone that person knows that they owe me money. They know, or I know that I owe that person money. There's never a point in time where I don't know or I don't remember. So that pain is already inflicted within that person that they owe. So that critical awareness is already within them. And, that pain that comes from that consistent reminder. So that comes from, even with if you failed an exam, or you failed your school, or you failed a business, and you get people around consistently reminding you that, oh, it's because you failed high school, for example, or you failed in that business. Look now, because you failed, and this could have been this, and that it could have been this, if only you did that. And those types of conversations and those types of things around then breed anger towards other people and resentment towards other people, because you're like, I already know that fact. I am already aware that I owe you, or I'm already aware that I failed you within returning this back to you. I'm already aware that I failed in my subjects. I'm already aware that I failed in business, and for me specifically, I know all my failures because I'm super critically aware and super critical towards myself, that I'm constantly before someone bashes me, I'm already bashing myself. I'm already that you should have done, that you shouldn't have done. So it even makes me even more angrier when someone else is inflicting that upon me even more. So that anger, then you get so mad and you kind of lash out, or you do something that you're not even proud of, but you're like, it's the anger that has just come out because of just the embarrassment and the shame and the resentment that has brewed within inside of me. And then the other one is disappointment for sure. You get disappointed, you feel low, your spirits go low, and you feel, like, that's the first one comes. You're like, you're disappointed. Disappointed in your abilities, disappointed in your capabilities, disappointed in yourself. And you feel like you didn't do enough, or you didn't try hard enough, or you should have done that, or so the feeling of disappointment is definitely one that comes in. And the next one being, or I've experienced, has been pain. And I've said this in previous episode, that like it feels physically painful in or within your body. Like your body feels painful. You're like, you start having ligaments that are paining. And I was having this conversation with my mom, and we were talking about it, and we were like, it's so funny because you start walking slower. Your back starts aching intensely. And the funny thing about it is that like the minute that problem goes away, you start feeling revived again. Like you can your body starts. It's like when you're broke and you're so broke and you don't have money and you're thinking of all of the problems that you have. And then like you get a little bit of money, just a little bit of money too. It's just like maybe you were hungry, you didn't have food, and then you get money. Then you go and buy bread and your body automatically just starts to lighten up. So it's the same opposite effect when you get a failure, that when you're anticipating a success and then you get a failure in something, and then your body then goes, choo, 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 and then the opposite is what you get when something, you've been waiting for, wanting to do, or a success feeling comes, because failure is the lack of success. So when then the failure comes, it goes down. But then when the success occurs, your body improves. Your body feels better. Your body. So it's this, that's how it feels. It's like, ouch, when you're successful, you feel like you can do anything. And your body is like, even if you had like a headache or a toothache, and for a second, you forget you even had that toothache. You're like, what? But when you failed and like, you're in a position of failure, or you feel like you just failed, like the toothache you had last week, all of a sudden it comes back because your body is reacting to that. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I've definitely have. It's very painful. And then every pain that you've ever had just starts kicking in and knocking in. And you're like, yay. But I was supposed to deal with this now it's coming with all of these other things. But pain being one of those: physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, financial pain, every other type of pain. Because also, I say financial pain because sometimes, because of the emotional pain and the psychological pain and the mental pain, you start finding yourself doing things that, you start burning your pocket, because you're trying to either mend that pain or failure, or you're trying to cover it up, or you're trying to avoid it, and you start adapting habits that would require you financially, take care of them in whatever way, shape, or form. You'll understand it in the way that makes sense most to you. But for me, I always try and fix the failure. So it definitely has always had a financial pain to me. As I'd said, like every debt that I've had, every financial hurdle has been because of what I do, and because I just want this to succeed. I just want what I do and who I'm trying to be to occur. So yeah, but you'll interpret that in whatever way it does for you. And the next thing that I've felt pain to feel like is that it triggers, and I said I'm gonna speak more on this, is that it triggers two emotions. You either flight or you either fight, right? You either get determined or you either give up. And I think both of these are valid. At some point in time, I had thought I would never, ever decide to fight or to flight. And it's because I've always had the energy to, right? And I feel like now I'm in a position and in a space where I am constantly praying for discernment from God to give me the spirit of discernment that will enable me to know when is it the failure has occurred and two paths are in front of me and I need to decide, right? I was doing a project, I was doing a subject, whatever it is that you feel like you failed in. Now you're at the crossroads where you're like, where do I go? Do I fight for this to succeed, or do I let it go and do I flight from it and, pursue something else or pursue a different alternative option to it, which is, I feel now, after this, I say, transitionary period of my life, in the season that I'm in, I find both valid, and they're both valid to who you are and the time and the space in which you're in and your capacity at that point in time. Before, I did have capacity to fight. And even now, feeling like, I've been working for so many years, and there are certain elements of what I do now that I want to fight for, and I'm going to be determined to fight. But there are certain things that I feel like I am ready to flight from, right? I'm ready to flight from. And I know a simple example from this, and I probably will go much deeper within it in my story time in the next couple of episodes, but I found myself having to have done what I call the YBB Awards, and for the past 6 years, right? And I found myself after the previous one, which occurred in I think it was November last year. And I always enjoy the process of putting these awards together, right? It's like, I'm excited. The impact of the work and the impact of what it gets to do excites me tremendously. And I've fought for it for the past 6 years. Every single year, I'm fighting for these awards to happen. And I got to a point where this year, I was asking myself, is there a way to package this amount of impact that I want to do with why I initially even began these awards? Is there a way of then packaging them in a capacity that where I won't be consistently met with failure? And why I say this was someone had sent me a message, and I don't even know why this even comes up now, though I'm thinking about it now, but I think that message brought me to a realization that I wasn't necessarily aware of before. Because yes, in the past 6 years, I found myself having to pay for these awards and put money together, and not having any financial support, and not having, physical support either from the people I'm doing this for the community that I'm trying to build around it. And there hasn't been much support around it. I felt that for sure, right? And I remember in December, when I was home kind of just sitting around, and I saw this box stacked with awards and, trophies that I had paid so much money from myself, from my own pocket, money that I was being constantly told at home, why don't you do something nice for yourself? You work hard at a gig, and you come back from that gig and you go and buy certificates or awards or trophies for other people, and then those are sitting here now, and you've spent so much money on them. And the people that you're doing it for, they're not even receptive of it. They don't even care. It's like, I don't care. Now you're sitting with this pack of certificates, and you're like, and this one particular person, this one girl sent me a message, and in this message, she was basically telling me that it read something like, Vuyo, people are talking about how, the most recent awards that you did last week, that was last year, she sent it. It didn't have a stage, and it was just not so, it wasn't good. There wasn't a stage. There weren't any mics at the venue. There wasn't I don't know what, I don't know if there was food or not. I don't think there was food, but there was welcome drinks. But there was a list of things that she had put on. The main part of it was the stage and the decorations and the sound system. And I saw this message, and she said that because of that, people are talking about how much of a failure or how much of a disappointment or how much of like this thing is. And there's conversation going around. And this person was someone that was one of the recipients for the awards. And I was just so shocked. And she was like, oh, I'm not meaning this in a bad way, but people are talking. And, you know, people are saying this and that. And I remember vividly thinking to myself that, like, we had hired a stage, we had hired a sound system, and it happened to be that the guys who were delivering the sound system and the stage were stuck downstairs at the hotel at which this was happening at. And they didn't find us. I don't know how it happened, but those people arrived at the venue, and I think I was doing my makeup or something like that when they arrived, so they couldn't get hold of either myself or my dad or my mom, and they just left. And so we didn't have the sound system and the stage and all of that. And my heart just tore into pieces when I saw that message, because I was like, if you even knew that I actually had spent money on booking a sound system and booking a stage and booking all the stuff that you're saying to me were an indication of failure, I actually had done those things, but they didn't arrive. And we couldn't wait. We had to start the event because the hotel was like, you guys only have this amount of time, so we can't wait for them to make a round trip again. And I was like, I don't even feel like explaining this. I'm just so tired, you know? But that felt so painful. And then it was upon the reflection of that particular message, I was like, do I fight for these awards? The people that I'm doing the awards for, they don't seem like they appreciate what it is that I'm doing for them, right? It feels like this is just going down the drain, because now they're talking about me, and it's discussions about how I'm failing at this thing, and they don't even know how much financial burden this has been on me, and how much I have spent, how much I've had to borrow that I still need to pay back, because I wanted to do this thing so beautifully and so eloquently for them. So that for me was like, then I'm at a crossroad where I've failed for 6 years doing these awards without any financial support, without any support from the people I'm doing it for, and it's like you do the whole thing and it would be an empty hall and people didn't come. And you paid for the venue, you paid for the food, you paid for the drinks, you paid for the sound, you paid for the person performing, you paid for all these things, and then they just don't pitch. And I was at that crossroads where I said to myself, I've been doing this for 5 years. This is meant to be the 6th year. I've been doing this for 5 years. Do I fight for it? But who am I fighting it for? Or do I just, absorb the experience that I learned from that, the experience that I learned and the lesson that I learned from it, and I walk away from it, and I find and figure ways of doing something or being around people that are going to appreciate what it is that I'm doing? Because it's been 5 years of non-appreciation, where there would be times where I would be like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? So in a situation like that, you're like, this thing has not had any success. I've got these things sitting in my room. I've not had any financial, it wasn't even about the money, and I was okay spending the money for it, but I didn't make any money from it. But instead, I keep year after year at this award ceremony, I go back home and I'm in tears because I've lost all this money. No one came, or few people came, and the others just didn't even make amends or try or means to even get their certificates. And, so that's been, that's a moment of failure. And you're like, okay, I'm failing at this thing. Now what do I do? Do I fight? I haven't even decided yet if I want to fight. I feel like I want to flight from it because I've given it my everything that I've given it my full capacity. I have nothing more for it, unless it would be under different circumstances where I would feel the support and the financial support, the, people supporting it, then I feel like definitely I would fight for it. But the more I've been doing it, the less support I've been receiving. So it really, I don't know, but I know you also have a situation where you're like, do I flight? Do I fight? But that's also an emotion. It triggers a flight or a fight response. That's what failure does. And it really gets to question and tests how much you want this thing, right? And how much do you want a big portion and a big part of it? Because the more of a failure in that particular area, as we had said in the previous episodes, that the more the amount of pain in an area, the most amount of profit, whether it's emotional profit or financial profit or mental profit, however, you see that profit to being. But how much do you want this? Like, how much do you want it? Do you want to do it big? Do you want to do it in an average capacity? Do you want to do it small? Do you want to do it entry? Like, how much do you want to do it? Because it makes you questions, like, it gives you that questions and tests. How much do you want to do it? That's the feeling it gives. And you feel like asking yourself that question, like, how much do I want this? And then it makes you ask, why do I want this, right? And I categorize that under feelings, because the want comes from a particular emotion and feeling, like, this is why I want it. This is the feeling that I get from wanting it or from desiring it. And you do want to ask yourself, like, why do I want to, why initially? And I found myself now looking back to saying, for an example, with these awards situation, like, why do I want to do it? I want to do it for the sake of impact. I want to do it for the sake of, as I said in the previous episode, wanting to feel like others are also elevated and I'm not just the only one elevating. So wanting that experience and then having to ask myself, why do I want it? That's because I want to elevate others and see others elevating. So, and then I ask myself now, when I'm in that crossroads of like fighting and flighting, is this the only way to do it? Is this the only way to elevate others? Therefore, I'm going to fight for it. If not, I'm going to flight from it and find other ways of elevating others, right? So that they are also empowered and equipped, because that's how I felt. I felt like I was, elevating and understanding my purpose and knowing what my purpose is. So I wanted to give others who are on that similar trajectory and similar path a pat on the back. So am I going to fight for it? I've asked myself, why? Am I going to fight for it? Or because it's the only way to do it, or am I going to fight for it because there's other ways, other avenues to explore that might not bring this exact amount of pain, or that won't bring consistent failure like this has? So it really gets you questioning and testing, and it gets to test that in so many ways. But also from this and out of this, I really would like to encourage, and I've made this mistake of holding on to the feeling, some of the ones that I've mentioned and explained today, the feelings of pain. What I've seen as being so dangerous and as being so harmful is keeping it in and holding it in. And not talking about how this makes you feel and how this is making you feel. And it's very detrimental, because when you sit with it, you start to have all of these emotions sitting inside of you. And, I don't know if there are support groups or spaces, because sometimes if you're engaging with others who don't know what the amount of the extent of the failure that you're feeling, it might be difficult for them to comprehend. But I do think it's very advisable. I'm in the process and in the journey of understanding how to be vulnerable around others, to other people, and opening up like to the true essence of like the emotions, because I've bottled and I've held onto emotions for such a long time. So talking to someone about it, because it can have extremely like extremely dangerous side effects, extremely dangerous mental health implications, and some could be permanent. So before it even gets to that, if you are experiencing failure or you have experienced failure and you're feeling all of these bottled emotions, either pain, either resentment, either disappointment, either shame, even any of those feelings, please communicate them with someone. Please communicate them with either myself as well. Drop it in the comment section. Send me a DM. Let's talk about it. It's okay to feel these emotions. I feel those emotions, and I'm in my process and my journey to overcoming these feelings because I've kept them inside for such a long time. But I hope this encourages you today, and I hope this reminds you that you're not alone. You're not wrong for feeling the way you're feeling. Pain is inevitable. Specifically, failure within pain is inevitable, because that's one of the things that, as we had said, success is 99% failure, but failure feels and brings out rather all these emotions. So how do we get to find ourselves to feel, experience, and sit in these emotions? I hope this helped you today, and I hope that it has definitely helped me getting to share it with you, and I hope that you're going to be able to share it with someone else as well and encourage them today if they're experiencing failure but most definitely are on the trajectory to success. I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your darling Vuyo Joboda. Lots and lots and lots of love. See you next week. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you learned a thing or two, and hopefully plenty of information, insight, and of course, inspiration right here on the Failures to Success podcast. My name is Vuyo Joboda. I'll see you on the next episode. But for now, do follow me on all social media platforms at Vuyo Joboda, and also visit our YouTube channel on @Vuyo Joboda for more of this episode and many others. From myself to you, with so much love, it is goodbye, and don't forget, it's one day at a time, one step at a time, one failure at a time, and one success at a time. Love you loads. Goodbye for now.